Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
All right. Welcome once again to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. It's a hot one. I have my nice cold drink here. So, Bob just logged in. Brian's here. The two Allens are here. We're good to go. Okay, where am I? Oh, be nice if I had the title up. So this past Saturday, we did a Multiplicity photo shoot over at Hubbard Park. Brian was there, Alan was there, Greg joined us, and myself. For the others who signed up that didn't join us, well, you missed out on some fun times. We had a good time there. So anyway, like I mentioned before, today's episode is going to be kind of a continuation of that workshop where we take those images and we are going to composite them into a single cohesive scene. So for those of you who did not join us, I'll kind of explain the prep work that was required, how we got the shots that we got. Thanks in part to Brian for being my cameraman for that particular job. And then we'll go into Photoshop and put it together. And trust me when I tell you, it's going to be a lot easier than you think. Trust me. Okay? All right. Before we get into that, I just want to mention a couple things that are coming up. We have the next Saturday, in conjunction with Milford Photo, I'm doing a flash photography workshop. It is going to get really heavy into the fundamentals of flash photography. So that way, when you go out on your own, you'll have a basic understanding of how the flash works, and you'll be able to work through a workflow that I'll be sharing with you on how to get the desired results rather than, taking wild guesses and hoping something works. Okay. So if you haven't signed up, please do so. You have to go to meetup.com under Milford Photo. It is a paid workshop. So hopefully we'll see you. There is one little caveat to that. I was just informed by Jesse over at Milford Photo that we may not have use of the venue that we originally had booked. The old library in Milford is now empty. It's under city control, and he had an arrangement with the city that anytime he needed to use the building, he could, but somebody somewhere somehow changed the rules, and it looks like that building may not be available for us for Saturday. So if you've signed up, stay tuned. We will probably be moving it into my building here. We have a nice big space upstairs that I am looking to reserve for next Saturday. If for some reason I can't get it, I have a very good friend who is a photographer who has a very large, uncluttered, unlike mine, uncluttered studio that she has graciously offered me the use of. So either way, we're going to have the workshop, and you just may need to, instead of going to Milford, you'll come here to Shelton. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. In association with the Connecticut Professional Photographers Association, in conjunction with ASMP, American Society of Media Photographers, and the Connecticut Art Directors Club and the American Institute of Graphic Designers, big event, some of our members have decided to come together and produce a workshop for anybody who is interested in drone photography. If you are interested in learning about how to get into drone photography, either as a hobby for yourself or as a commercial way of making money, this will be the workshop to attend. It's going to be a very long workshop. It's going to cover everything. It's going to allow you to take a look at the different types of drones. If weather permits, they're going to allow people a chance to fly some of the drones to show you how easy it really is to get into drone photography. It's going to go over all the rules and regulations, how to get your commercial pilot's license, which sounds scary, but it really isn't. And then if people are up to it, there's talk about getting a lifestyle photo shoot together at the end of the workshop, kind of like a little bonus mini workshop. A lifestyle workshop where you get to see how a lifestyle photo shoot can utilize drones to create not only still images but video images, for commercial use. So I thought that was going to be interesting. It's going to be led by Carl Verland, who is an architectural photographer, very well respected in the state of Connecticut. His photography has garnered a lot of awards. He's been published in pretty much all the leading architectural magazines that are out there. And Derek, I'm blanking out on his last name. Derek. Anyways, he's a videographer. He's worked on everything from big budget movies down to local advertising campaigns. So this guy knows his stuff. So this workshop's coming to you by recognized leaders in the industry. So if you're interested, I will give you all the details once everything is hammered out. But right now, we're looking at tentatively to have this on August 15th. So we're still a month away, roughly about 5 o'clock. That time may change depending. Okay. Cool. All right. So that's that for coming up. All right.
Doc, it was August 15th, and where is it, in the city or Hartford or?
No, it's actually going to be at Derek's studio. It's what's a 110 studio in Middletown.
Okay, so Middletown.
So Middletown, yeah. He's got a he's got his own private studio there. I believe it's at his house. It's a building, adjacent to his house, and apparently he has a pool, and the lifestyle shot will be filmed around the pool. So looking forward to it. All right. Any local news anybody want to share? No, nothing? Okay. All right. Let's talk about the Multiplicity photo shoot. All right. I want to thank Alan and Brian for joining me. It was a little bit on the hot side, but overall it was kind of nice. And of course, anytime a group of friends get together for photography, it's always a lot of fun. All right. Definitely some goofing around. Of course, Alan was a little scary when he brought out that big old machete knife of his. Hopefully.
I took that to high school every day of my life. Only kid.
Hey, you jest, but when I was 14 when I was 14, I was in Boy Scouts, then went to the Webelos, And I carried a pocket knife. And I carried a pocket knife in school. Nobody ever gave me crap about it. You know? Now it's like, oh, God forbid. You know? Sign of the times. You know?
Should be
So-
told I was a little more concerned when he pulled out Mary Lou, the shower head.
Oh, yeah, that was a little risque looking.
No, that's scary. It was this a prop. Honest. It was a prop.
Yeah, okay. You know, if you were to put up a blow up doll right next to it, they kind of share a lot of the same similarities.
That was the idea, and who knows? Someday we may meet again.
But like I said, we had a good time. It was a lot of fun. Okay, so let me I guess I'll switch over to the desktop. All right, so what I did is I went and downloaded the images from the photo shoot, and like I mentioned, Brian was gracious enough to help me out with this. He was actually behind the camera. So the way it works, for those of you who've never done a multiplicity photo shoot or don't know what it is that you are going to create a scene, a tableau, a little story, a photographic story. But instead of populating it with models and people and things, you're going to populate it with different instances of yourself. So you become the actor in your own story. And this is why you kind of need to work with a partner, because your partner, you have to rely on your partner not only to trip the shutter, but also to kind of guide you in a sense of where you are in the place within the frame of your scene. So the story that I was going for here that I told Brian about was, imagine 4 friends going out, to do a little bit of fishing. And one guy catches a really tiny fish, and the other catches a really big fish. All right, so of course everybody's laughing at the guy that catches the little fish, and of course the one with the big fish, he's all proud of himself and in his glory. So that's the concept. Fairly simple. I brought a variety of different shirts to change into, so that way each character kind of sort of looks a little different. But you don't necessarily have to go that crazy. Alan also did some costume changes, which is nice, but it kind of helps tell the story, All right, so once we had the story kind of roughed out, I said, okay, this is our viewport, all right, and initially, let me blow this up here. Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and share the screen. That probably should be a little bit easier. Share. Okay. All right, so this was the initial scene that I kind of thought about, where we kind of used the little hillside and these stairs and these little columns as a way of kind of like a background for our scene. All right, give me 1 second. My drawing thing is not active. Where are we? Here we go. There we go. Okay. So my thought was to basically just have one person here seated, one person here seated, and then the two people with the little fish and the big fish, you know, kind of standing side by side and comparing images or comparing fish stories. All right. But I said, well, you know, it's a little bit too broad. As you can tell, I had to put on a telephoto lens. I put on the 70-200 lens, and I'm actually shooting across the pond. And I said, that's a little bit too wide. So I kind of zoomed in a little bit more. And that was kind of my scene. All right. Right about there. All right. And so I had this little chair that I brought with me and a little cooler. The cooler, very functional because it was a very hot day. So I placed this in this position as being, you know, my bookend to the right-hand side. And there was some little water runoff here, and we kind of used that as the bookend for the left edge. And the plan was to put the, you know, two standing figures with the fish in between those. So with Brian's guidance, I kind of, you know, mapped out where everything was going to happen. Because again, you got to realize there's nobody there but yourself. You're going to be portraying all the characters. So you have to have a sense of spatial awareness as to where you are, where you're going to be, and where you have been. All right. So that was the plan. So the first one I changed into this, and he's, in my mind, this is the guy that's kind of laughing at the guy with the little fish. So we took a series of me kind of pointing and reacting to the person, you know, again, realize that there's going to be, you know, me here with the little fish standing here. So there's a little bit of play acting. There's also trying to guesstimate where I would be physically, taking up space to actually interact with. So it becomes a little bit of a challenge. And of course, the trick is to have a variety of things that kind of help tell the story. So that way, when you start compositing the images together, you have some choices, because some frames will fit better with other frames, and you know, they'll interact better together. So you just pull the best ones out of it. And of course, some body language also reads a little bit better than others. Yeah, see, this one I'm not too crazy about. Okay. Then we switched it up. I changed shirts, shifted the chair over to the other side. This guy's could care less about the other two, and he's just kind of like observing, but he's more concerned about, you know, fishing. It's like, you know. So did a series of shots that way. All right. And then we get into guy with a little fish. Guy with a little fish. And of course, I didn't have a fish to utilize, so I made do. I put my water bottle on the edge of the fishing line, so I have a line of sight and something that I can interact with. So that's my little fish. And we did a variety of, that one kind of swung back and hit me in the face, and Brian caught it. And then just, you know, variety. And the plan was to do some facing to the left, some facing to the right, looking at the fish, looking at the camera. That way we can determine which one's going to go where. Then, of course, we got the guy with the big fish. And I needed some way of getting that fishing pole to bend as if it's got some weight to it. So I just tied it off to the cooler, and the cooler kind of allowed me to bend the tip of the fishing pole, and I just kind of kept some pressure on it, and here it is goofing around trying to pretend that there's a big heavy fish. All right, some interacting with the guy that's going to be in the chair, things like that. All right, then assets. Obviously, I didn't have a fish or fishes, so I went searching for them on the internet. I went to what was it? I can't even remember the name of the site. Unsplash. There. I went to Unsplash and PX here, and I downloaded a few images. This one I figure would be possibly a good one for the big fish. This one might be good for the big fish or the little fish. All right, this one I figure would be good for the little fish, but you know, I was a little concerned because it's kind of sitting on a table, and I don't know how well it will read once it's cut out and rotated to look like he's hanging. All right, and I said, well, you know, we got to have some cans of beer. You know, if you're fishing, you're going to be drinking. All right, and I'm not a big drinker, so I found these. I figure I'll set those out as well. All right, and of course we need another cooler. All right, so those are my images that I took, or rather that Brian took of me, and my assets. Okay, all right. Any questions on how we set up the photo shoot and how we populated it? I think the photos kind of explain it, right? All right, so let's get down to the nitty gritty. All right. Do I have Photoshop open? Yes, I do. Okay. All right. Like I said, I really haven't had a chance to do much with these images. I just kind of downloaded them earlier today. And haven't really had a chance to go through them. As a matter of fact, what we just did going through them is the first chance I've actually had to see the full entire set. So I'm kind of working this a little bit blind on my side, but you'll get to see the entire process from beginning to end, errors and all. So I haven't rehearsed this. All right, so as you guys know, one of the first things that I like to do with the images in Lightroom is go ahead and normalize the images. The camera was locked onto a tripod, so it's not like I need to worry about images straying off. Right? The only images that we're not going to concern ourselves with are probably the first 3 or 4 images, because the first 3 images I was still playing around with, you know, composition. All right, so we can probably get rid of those right off the bat. And then the rest should line up fairly well. All right, so what I've done is I've selected all of them. You can see that they're all the lighter gray, indicating that they are selected. And you want to make sure that sync is on auto sync. All right, there's a little lever here next to the sync button. If you flip that up, it'll change to auto synchronize. All right, right here, auto sync. Okay.
They don't look white to me.
They all what?
They still look like gray boxes.
Yeah, they all should be gray boxes because they're all selected.
Oh,
all right.
Gray box. Okay.
As a matter of fact, let me
white.
go.
You mentioned white, so okay.
I got you.
Oh, no, light.
Like,
Light gray. Light gray. Sorry. I can talk. All right. As compared to the dark gray when they're not selected. Okay. All right. So you make sure that auto sync is on. And what I'm looking to do at this point is just kind of get the exposures proper and the colors looking proper. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the develop mode. All right. And it's from here, as long as you do not click on any of the frames down below, all right, in your film strip, if you click on an image, it's going to shift the focus to that image. But if you click on the outside frame, it's going to deselect everything but what you just clicked. So make sure that when you're navigating this, you can either use the left and right arrow buttons. All right, so you can use the left and right arrow buttons, or make sure you click on the image itself, not the frame. Okay, so this particular scene, like I said, is fairly simple. I try to make it as simple as possible. I didn't want any distractions behind us because I want all the attention to be on the characters that are going to be telling the story. So I have this this little incline of grass. And of course, we have all the stonework. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I have the colors looking good. So I'm going to skip the basic tab and I'm going to go straight into calibration. All right. And if you'll notice that on the way I have my Lightroom set up is right below my basic tab, I have calibration. That's because I use this tab all the time. So what I've done is I've reconfigured Lightroom. All right, so if you right click and you say customize develop panel, you can move those things around. All right, so usually calibration is like down on the bottom, I believe. Okay, the default. Okay. Save. Oh, no, relaunch later. Okay. I want calibration right below the basic. Okay, so I'm going to bring that back up. Okay. Save. Relaunch later. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the calibration tab to kind of give a little bit of oomph or lack of oomph to my background. Again, I want to normalize all of my images at once. So that way, when I bring them into Photoshop to do the final composite, this area is not a part of the workflow that I need to worry about because it's already been taken care of. All right. So I want my grass looking a little greener and less yellow. So I'm going to take my hue on my green primary and I'm going to boost it up. If you go to the right, it goes more to the cyan. If you go to the left, it'll bring you more to the yellow. All right, so I just brought it a little bit, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. You don't want to go to an unnatural green color, obviously, so you don't want to push this too far, all right? Unless, you know, of course, you want a yellow-looking grass, then you can push it the other way. But I want something that looks a little green. All right, and then the saturation is how saturated do you want that green color to look? Of course, if you bring it to the left, it's going to desaturate it and not quite turn it completely black and white, That's not what this slider is for, but you can see how desaturated that green color is. And of course, if we turn it the other way, it's going to be, you know, neon green, and that's also not what we want. So dial it in a little bit to your choice of what you would like. You know, maybe I want a little bit of more saturation. That's good. The stonework, the majority of the color is red, orangey color. So that would be in the red primary part of this tool, right? And of course, you got to realize that they all influence each other, okay? So it's not like these are isolated colors that we're targeting, okay? So I'm just gonna probably just boost up the reds a little bit, all right? And I'm gonna desaturate the blue just a little bit. Okay, and maybe a salt and pepper to taste here. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, and of course, I'm doing this in reference to me wearing this orange shirt. And I switched shirts throughout the photo shoot, so I might want to check to see what it looks like, all right, with some of the other outfits. So that doesn't look too bad. Let me find one where I'm standing up. All right, here it is. That doesn't look too bad. That looks really, really nice. And of course, this one. Okay, we're looking good. All right, so now I got my colors looking good. I'm actually going to look at the exposure, and I'm saying, you know what, maybe the highlights can come down, bring down the whites. Me, I like a little bit of contrast. All right, I'm actually not liking that green. I'm going to go back and rework my green a little bit. Bring the saturation down. Okay, good. All right. The green is also very, very bright. So I'm going to go to my hue, saturation, luminance tab, and I'm going to go to where it says luminance, and I'm going to bring my green value down. Not too much. Don't want to, you know, make it, you know, look like it's had a fire, right? And maybe bring the saturation down just a touch to bring it more into normal levels of saturation. All right. Again, you don't want anything that looks oversaturated because that makes it look a little bit fake. Okay. Maybe bring the saturation down on the red a little bit. There we go. All right. So that looks pretty good. And because this is on auto sync, all right, it's going to apply those changes across the entire collection of images at once. All right. Any questions what I just done? Now, of course, your images may require a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on, you know, what you're photographing, what the lighting conditions are when you create your scene, etc. All right. Especially, you have to take into consideration that these photographs are shot over a period of time, you know, because you have, you know, location changes, you have multiple shots at each location. In this case, I had wardrobe changes, so that takes time. So, you know, this photo shoot may be half hour, 45 minutes long, depending on how complex. The sun can come in and out of clouds very easily within that time period. And more than likely, once you set your camera up, you're not going to want to touch it. So you may need to make some adjustments in exposure on 1 or 2 frames in order to make them match the rest of the way. All right. So those are considerations to take into effect when you're working with multiplicity photo shoots. All right. Any questions on anything I've just done? We're good? Okay. Now comes the hard part. Now I need to decide which images are going to go into the final scene. All right. Now, obviously, I have enough images here that I can composite multiple scenes, and they're going to be slightly different from each other depending on the poses that I use. But in essence, it's the same story. So do I really need to make multiple story images? No, not really. I'm not going to gain anything. So this is basically just a bunch of images that are going to be used for one composite, and that's pretty much it. Okay. All right. Usually I say take a blank plate that you can use for your composite. All right. That's not a hard, solid rule to go by. That's usually something that I tell people. You want to create a blank slate with no, you know, I kind of goofed up because I put the chair in place, but you want it so that way, in case you need to move any of the characters from their original position, you have data there to utilize. All right. In this case, we're going to keep it fairly simple. So I don't think it's that critical. You can get away with just utilizing in this case, the 4 frames that are going to be creating the final image. All right. Now, I say the 4 frames that are going to be used for the final image, but you're not going to start off with 4 frames. You're probably going to start off with more frames than you need. And then and as you're working through, you might see that one image works better than the other. All right. Again, this is why we kind of overshoot. All right. So if we look at it, we have 10 images just with our first pose. Okay. So if I were to look at all of these, all right, and just cycle through, and you can cycle through fairly quickly. You can kind of see which ones are going to work and which ones not. So this one here, probably not going to work. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove that from the lineup, okay? And if you notice here, that image has now turned a darker gray because I deselected it. So what I'm doing here is I am in the survey mode, right? No, I'm sorry. I'm in the library mode in the expanded view, but because I only had the 10 selected, it's just going to rotate through those 10 and nothing else. If I want one removed out, I can just use the / key, which is right below the question mark, and it will remove a selection from your group. Okay. So you can very quickly go through these. That one's not very strong, so I'll get rid of it with the / key. That one's not very strong. I've seen better ones, so we'll remove that one. And just by process of elimination, all right, that one, or that one's stronger than that one, so we'll get rid of that. That one, or that one. That one's better than that one, I think. So I'll get rid of that one. I kind of like that one. I don't like that one. That one's better than that one, so I'll get rid of it. And no, I don't like that one. All right, so I've brought it down to 2 possible candidates for that position. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the letter P. It's going to mark it with the flag, right here. And that lets me know that those are my 2 candidates. Okay. Now I can go back to the grid view and I can select the next set. And we're just going to repeat the process. In this case, we have 15 images. All right, so using the arrow key, I'm going to fly through all of these. Some of these are better than others. That's no good. I'll get rid of it. That one kind of, no, maybe, no, definitely not, kinda, no, maybe, no, maybe. It's kind of boring. All right, so we're back to the beginning. We got 3 possibles, 1, 2, or 3. 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hit the letter P for pick. Bring it back to the grid view. Go to my next set, which is little fish. All right, so this is where we start thinking about real interaction, not only with the characters, but with the overall scene. One of the things that I discussed with Brian right from the get-go was that I wasn't sure how it would look in the finished piece. If it was better if the 2 fishes were in between the 2 fishermen, or if the 2 fishermen were together and then the fishes were more towards the outside. So I told him that I was going to be taking photos facing one way and facing the other way. And it would give me some options and we can figure out what works best in the composition when we actually go in. All right. So what I mean is this is my character that goes on the right hand side. There will be another me on the left hand side holding the big fish. All right, so we can either have it so that we're both looking inwards towards our fish, or we can have the fish on the outside and we're both looking outwards. Okay, so those are the 2 options that I had in mind. All right, so once again, in this case, I have 14 candidates to run through. That one's not too bad. He's kind of looking at his little fish. This is a little bit more open. I kind of like that one. Oops. I hit the wrong one. All right. We'll get rid of that one because that was an oops. That's, nah. Kind of looking at the, oh, that one's, I kind of like that one. No. Yep. Yep. No. Yeah. They're both kind of the same. So we'll go this one. No, this one, this one. That one says more body language wise than that one. So we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. Okay, so I should probably drill it down to, let's get rid of that one. We'll get rid of that one. All right, 4 candidates. That's good. All right. Final one. First, shift click the last. We have 25 candidates for this one. I think we got a little carried away on this one. So let's see what we got. That one looks pretty possible. All right, that one, nah. I like, okay, kind of grabbing at it, yeah. No, yeah. Light. We'll get rid of that. That one, that one. All right. We'll get rid of that one. No, no. Possible. Yes. No, yes. I kind of like. Which one? That one's stronger, right? Okay. Oh, that's even better. Get rid of that one. No. Yes. Okay, yeah. Oh, I like that one. All right. Get rid of that one. Get rid of that one. All right. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get rid of that one. Get rid of that one. Okay. Down to 5 images. We'll pick. All right. Okay. So now what I want to do is I just want to have just the images that I picked. So I'm going to go to Attribute, click on the flag, and it's just going to show me all the images with that have been flagged. All right. Everybody with me so far? All right. So you make your selections. These are all possible candidates. Once we actually start putting them into our scene and actually see how they physically interact, then we can make better choices. Because right now, up to this point, I've been kind of using my mind's eye to try to kind of like, build a composite in my imagination. But once we actually see it, that's when we're going to get a chance to really do a comparison. All right. So click the first, shift click the last. And what I want to do is I want to open these in Photoshop as a stack. I don't want to open them individually. So if I right click, all right, and we go edit in about a third of the way down, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. So on the flyout menu, it's the last one, open as layers in Photoshop. Now, depending on how powerful your computer is, you may want to dwindle it down with fewer images, not so much the number of images that I got. I got what, 4, 9, about 16, 17 images, something like that. Okay, actually, I guess I can go back and take a look. How many? 14 images. All right, so 14 images in Photoshop might slow me down a little bit. All right, we'll wait for these to load up. Okay. As they're loading up, I am looking at how well these are lining up. And it looks like they did a decent job. All right. So once we're loaded up, if I hide the layer above, okay, so I saw a little shift here. So there is a little misalignment. Sometimes that happens, oh, there we go. That's a big jump there. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to select the entire stack. So again, click the top one, scroll down, shift click, select them all, and we are going to file, where was it, scripts. Let's see, I usually do this with a an action. Okay, here we go. Edit, auto align layers, auto align layers. All right. So make sure that all your layers that you want to align are selected. We click on that and just keep it to the auto. All right. You don't need to get fancy everything else by default. Just keep it to the auto and hit OK. It's going to go through a little bit of a process. Did it do it? Ooh, it did it already? Oh, that was quick. Oh, no, it didn't. Where are we? Okay, here we go. There's, all right. So give it a second, let it do its thing. All right. And now what you'll notice, especially towards the corners, let me zoom in here. All right. You'll see something like this. Okay. Don't worry about this right here. We can always fix that later. We can either crop in a little bit, or we can do a little bit of cloning to get rid of this. What you're seeing here is just that the misalignment from one frame to another. This is Photoshop's alignment algorithm in effect, and it placed all the images where they should be. And you can see that, a couple of these were really out of alignment, and then everything else was fairly good. So it did its job. Don't worry about what it looks like on the edges. All right. We just want to make sure that when we click from image to image, all right, so you can see how right up here we have this alpha channel showing through. Don't worry about that. All right. As you toggle through, you don't want that background moving, all right, which it was doing before. And it looks like Photoshop did a good job with it. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the visibility. All right. Just click on the eyeball to hide the visibility. Okay. And I'm just going to go down to the bottom of my stack. Now, in this particular image, because all my characters are side by side, I don't really have to worry about one character hiding or superimposing another character. All right, in this particular scene. But in your scene, if you have one character standing in front of another character, you do have to pay attention to how you stack the images. The character that's going to be in front needs to be higher in the stack than the other characters. So usually I'll stack them top to bottom, being front to back, with the backmost characters being at the bottom of the stack and the frontmost characters being at the top of the stack. Okay. In this particular case, it really doesn't matter. If I wanted to, I can align them left to right. So I can take, just looking at the thumbnails here. Okay. I can take all the ones of me sitting on the left hand side. I can go ahead and move those down to the bottom of the stack. Okay. And all the ones of me in the second position would be next. Third position would be next. And then finally, fourth position would be at the top of the stack. Okay. Whatever makes it convenient for you to keep track of. All right. So now comes the fun part. Okay. What I want to do is I want to start putting these in. All right. So because this first position is going to be my bottom plate, it's pretty much going to be my master plate, meaning that the background in this image is pretty going to be the background for the entire scene. Okay. All right. So now I have to decide, do I want this guy? Oh, where are we? Did I? One, this, two, or this guy, or this guy. Okay. I kind of like that one, but I kind of like that one, but you know, all right. So I'm going to go with this guy. All right. So I'm going to take my other one and just move it down below. Okay. All right. Now, as you can see, I don't need to do anything with this particular plate because this is now our master plate. Okay. So this part, easy peasy. All right. Now I have to make a decision. Okay. Of the interaction between the two. All right. Which one of these do I want? All right. I kind of like that he's interacting with this guy. All right. But this one's kind of cheesing it to the camera. So is this one. So is that one. All right. And I kind of like it's either that one or that one. Any preference for you guys? We'll go maybe with that one. Okay.
That's fine, the first one.
The cheesy one.
Yeah,
that one. Okay. Interacting. Okay. All right. So now I have to composite this layer into the one below. Okay. How do we do that? We do that by creating a mask. Now, the wonderful thing about Photoshop nowadays is we have a lot of mask building techniques available to us. All right, we have the Lasso tool, we have the pen tool that we went over just last Monday, and of course we have the AI tools. All right, so we can go to our object selection, okay, and all I got to do if I want to, I just make a marquee around this character. Okay, and doesn't do the greatest of jobs. All right, because you can see it kind of selected a little bit of the stonework behind me, but that's okay. It did the majority of the work for me, and you can see that it did a really decent job. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and utilize this. So now all I got to do is switch over to my Lasso tool. Okay, and you want to make sure that the lasso is on the additive. All right, so you have normal, you have add, you have subtract, and you have, I can't remember what it's called, but intersect. All right, so we want to make sure we're on the add because we want to add to our selection. All right, so all these areas that it missed, I want to go ahead and add. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see this. And it's a little fuzzy. Yeah, you know what? I don't care for the purpose of this tutorial. It'll be fine. Okay. If I have something that juts out that I want to remove, all I have to do is press and hold the Alt key or Option key, and that will allow me to remove items. Okay, so here I want to add, and you don't have to get as precise as I am here, and I'll tell you why in a second. All right, let me just go ahead and subtract this whole thing here. I'm going to go a little bit loose. Okay. Add. There we go. All right. For this long run, all right, I'm going to switch over to my polygon tool. All right. And I'm going to go click. And it's going to create a straight line in between these sections. All right. That just makes making that selection a little bit easier. I'm going to make sure that I select my fishing line. Okay. And I'm just going to use my lasso tool on this part, making sure that I get the fishing line. All right, and I'm not going to worry about the fishing line coming down from the tip to our fish. We can add that later when we actually go into composite the fish into this. Okay, and I'm not going to worry about this little section in here. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit.
Doc, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, I guess I've never done this, but you've got a selection going, but you're moving between different tools while the same selection is selected.
Correct. Well, these are all the lasso tools. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
you're all doing different variations of the lasso.
Correct. So if we click on this, we see we have the lasso, the polygon lasso, and the magnetic lasso.
Okay.
All right. These are all just selection making tools. Okay. And then once you're in one of those, like I said, you want to be in the one where you're adding. Okay. But as soon as I hit and press that Alt key, you're going to notice that it's, let me see if I can zoom here, if it'll work with the zoom. Notice how it has a little plus symbol. As soon as I hit the Alt key, it changes to the negative symbol. All right, so we're adding to the lasso, and we press and hold the Alt key. We're removing from the lasso. Okay. So with that one key press, I can add to or remove from my selection. Okay. Now, the nice thing about it is the initial selection the AI made was fairly decent. So I don't have to go too crazy. All I got to do is just come in and clean up wherever it kind of missed. All right. And what I want to do is, show you how you don't have to be overly careful. All right, here I'm going to make some selections outside of here. Okay. Because the background is aligned. The background of this plate matches the background of me sitting in the chair. All right. So I don't have to be overly careful about this particular selection. The only time you need to be careful is if there are any overlaps or if something changes between the background of this plate and the background of the previous plate. Okay. All right. So
it's like you want, Duck, it sounds like you almost, like for you cover where you're circling that you almost want to be a little sloppy or leave a little.
Yeah. You want to be, because that's going to give you that nice transition into the background that's already there. Okay, so once you have your selection, I'm going to go ahead and most often than not, I just click on the masking tool. Okay, and voila. Okay, now we see that we have an issue here. Okay, and we see we have an issue here. All right, so we could have had it so that because the guy sitting down is technically in front of the guy standing up, I could have reversed those plates in the order. Or I can just go to the mask. Okay. Go to the mask here. And, oops, let me go to this tool, the properties tool. And if I bring the density down to about 50%, okay. Oh, wait a minute. Let me invert, Control I, invert it. Okay. All right. And then turn the opacity down a little bit. Actually, I don't even need to turn the opacity down. All right. Once I invert it, we can see the intersection. All right. Because what's showing here, all of this, all right, this is from the other plate. So now all I got to do is select a brush, give myself a fairly hard edge, not too hard. All right, make sure my opacity is at 100, flow is at 100. All right, and I want white as my foreground color. All right, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase that part. Okay, and it's going to look a little weird because now it looks like my shoe is coming into view. All right, but you have to realize what we are seeing in this particular mask is the intersection between the mask that I just created and the image below. All right, so that very clearly shows me the area of conflict. So now when I invert it again, Control Command I, all right, you can see that I have now put myself behind my character. All right, and if I want to, I can just, do a little bit further cleanup right along that edge. All right, if it needs be, if I was a little bit too, not too careful. And now he looks like he is actually standing behind. Okay, and we can do the same thing here. All right, the guy in red is hiding the fishing pole, but as soon as I invert it, I can see the fishing pole. Okay, so white as my foreground. I'm going to zoom in because this is very, very thin. Okay, I'm going to make my brush that size, and I'm literally erasing the fishing pole. All right, the fishing pole is my guide of what do I need to mask. All right, so as long as I stick to that fishing pole, I don't care about what it's replacing. It's replacing with stuff that's below it. All right, that doesn't matter. Okay, as a matter of fact, because this is a straight line, let me move this. Because this is a straight line, I can click here, shift click here, and it's going to create a straight line. Click, shift click. All right. right? And if you are a little sloppy, don't big deal, because once we invert, we can make whatever corrections we need. All right. And they're just like that. Our fishing pole is gone. Okay. So that way, when we invert our mask again, there's our fishing pole. Okay. And if we want, we can zoom in and we can go ahead and clean it up a little bit. We got some chromatic aberration going on there that we can get rid of. Okay. Easy enough, right? Awesome. And just like that, I've put one guy in front of the other. Okay. So that's one way of doing it. Just by making a selection. I used the AI tool of, object selection, marqueed around it. It did a fairly decent job. I had to kind of assist it a little bit, but we got it. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. Is this too complicated for you? Hopefully not. If it is, I'll show you a different way.
I have a question about what you just did. So I guess the way I was thinking about it, no matter where the characters would be, is that I'd end up with a mask layer for each character.
You could, yes.
So, but when you started with that guy sitting down with his hand up.
Yep.
He's in the original background one. Yeah?
Correct. Yeah. So
okay.
I'm basically cheating it. I could have started with a blank background and masked all four of them in.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the one thing about this is, all right, let's say you are horrible at masking. Okay. You can get away with really bad masks. Here, let me show you with like this guy here. Okay. I'm going to do a really, really lousy mask here. Okay. You can see that's really lousy mask. I'm not being careful at all, right? I got some of the background. All right. Well, my shoes. Okay, so we'll pick the cooler as well. Okay. And we'll pick this. Okay. You all can make a terrible mask like that, right?
I certainly can.
Absolutely. If you can't make something this ugly, might as well
We
call
can
it
make
quits.
better, worse masks than that. That's for sure.
All right. Good. All right. Now, but because the layers are aligned, all right, because the layers are aligned, now when I create a mask, okay, you can see that it did a really, really decent job. All right. I just, it's the color's a little off, but all I got to do now is with a soft round brush, all right, and black as my foreground color, I can just come in and kind of blend that edge a little bit. All right. And with not much skill, I can get that looking halfway decent. Right? Ta-da. Oh.
You missing a foot?
Yeah, I am. Okay, so here,
That's
oh,
gonna leave a mark.
there we go. And then we just go down and a little bit of care right along there and we're good. Okay. All right. So that's one of the benefits of having the backgrounds that are aligned. You can get really sloppy with your selection. Now, where it's not going to work is if I say I need to scoot this guy over a little bit. All right, because now my selection is sloppy and it's very noticeable. Okay. But if we are a little bit more careful with our selection, all right, I would have to obviously fix my mask here, but you can see that I can shift it a little bit, you know, and we're good because I took a little better care with that particular mask. All right, make sense? All right.
Yeah.
But
And to answer your other question there, did you lose us? That's the first time I've seen that with intersection, I guess, using Photoshop kind of tools. I've seen it with other vector tools I've used. But anyway, so I think it was pretty neat. I've never seen it. I was paying close attention. I was with you, but I will certainly have to watch this again when I go to do it.
okay, well, I'm going to show you a different method if this one kind of, you can't quite wrap your head around it. All right, because
it's neat. It was high level, but
yeah, because what we're doing is we're inverting the mask in order to see just the parts that we need to fix. Basically, that's what we're doing. We invert just to fix what we need to fix. All right. So when we put in our next character, which is maybe this guy, all right, I'm going to show you a different way. All right, do we go this guy, this guy, this guy, or I kind of like that first one. All right, so we're going to do this guy. All right. And what we're going to do is we're not going to make a selection first. I'm actually going to make a mask first. Just regular plain old mask. Okay. And if you notice, I cannot see anything below this layer. Okay. Now this one is a little bit more time consuming because we're actually going to be painting out the character. So soft round brush. All right. Actually, you can even start with a hard round brush, a little on the larger side. All right. And with black as your foreground color. All right. Black foreground color. We're going to go. Oh, and make sure your mask is selected. Okay. We're going to go ahead and paint out. All right. And because I got a fairly large brush, I'm going to keep my edge. All right. I just want to do a lot of the bulk of the erasing here. All right. But because we're working with masks, this becomes a non-destructive method of compositing. All right. So I'm just basically doing all the grunt work here. Okay. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. All right. I just need enough of that edge to act as a reference point for me. And I'll show you why in a second. Okay. So now if we look at that, it's Hollow Man. Woo! All right. And of course, you'll do the same thing with the fishing pole, but let's just go on with this. All right. So now I have my edge. All that's left is the edge of my character. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to a soft round brush. All right, the reason I want a soft brush is because if you notice, this edge here is a very hard edge. But if we look at this, all of this, we have very soft edges. One, because my camera wasn't quite focused well. All right, so I want a soft brush that is going to kind of match that edge for me. And now all I'm doing is I am using the brush to remove the rest up to pretty much up to that edge and not much more past. And of course, you don't have to get too crazy with it, all right? You can do this very, very quickly. All right. Probably not as quick as making a selection using the AI tools or the automated tools, but fairly fast. All right. Of course, it helps when you have a digital pen. Hint, hint. Sorry, I had to get that in. Okay. There, get rid of the fingers. Get rid of those edges. And just work your way all the way around. That's all I'm doing. All right. And because I can see what I am erasing, all right, that gives me a reference of where I am spatially with my character that I'm compositing in. All right. So this technique is kind of a little bit of a backwards way of working. We are erasing it to composite it into our scene. All right. And I'll show you what I mean in a second here. So we're going to just go ahead and erase all of this. All right, and you can see I'm not being overly careful with my edges here. I just want to make sure that I become kind of like the invisible man here, where you can just barely see a little bit of the outline. All right, not much. And of course, this also works if you need to shift yourself within the scene. All right, because now what I'm doing is I'm making sure that I'm not getting too much of the extraneous background from this particular selection. All right, I'm going to show you what the mask looks like in a second. All right, and here we are. We made our, resize my my brush. Okay, shift click, all right, and it allows me to come in and remove. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Shift click, all right, and I kind of go along there. Shift click, shift click, and I'm basically just using short lengths of straight lines to remove it. All right, make it a little bit smaller. Shift click, shift click, and shift click. Okay. Floating bottle in midair. Okay, so now this is what my mask looks like. You can see that's a damn good professional looking mask. All right. So now when I invert my mask, Control I or Command I, okay, I am now composited into the scene. Okay. Now, the reason I like doing this is because you can see exactly where your edges are that you need to mask. All right. Simple enough, right? Simple, simple.
Not quite simple, but it makes a lot of sense. I agree with Brian, this is more the way I was thinking how it was gonna work.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Correct. Yeah, this is way back in the day when Photoshop wasn't as fancy. This is the way I used to do it. Because it really, really allows you to see where you are masking, you know, and you can do it fairly easily. All right. Okay, so we just need to go to our final guy. It's either this one or that one. Kind of like that one, although that one's more interactive, huh? Maybe we'll do that one. Okay. All right. Another way you can do it, if you want, you can go ahead and use the magnetic lasso tool. All right. So
Would that also get the cooler if you do a lasso?
so the magnetic lasso, yeah, it'll probably do the cooler too. Magnetic lasso looks for edges. Right. And again, if you use the, let's see. Oh, we want to make sure that we are in the add. Okay. All right. And we're just going to go ahead and kind of just paint. All I'm doing is kind of following along. All right. It's not necessarily the easiest, most precise tool. All right. But sometimes it really does do a really good job.
This is the way I always did it back in the day with a mouse. And I didn't understand about additives, so if I ever buggered it up, I had to start again.
Oh, yeah.
And again, and again.
Let's see. Yeah, so in this case, if we look up here, all right, when I hit the Alt key, oh, it's not going to let me do it with that viewer on. Okay, just look up here. All right, when I hit the Alt key, oh, I got to be on the screen. Okay, when I hit the Alt key, you'll notice that it shifts it from additive to subtractive. Okay, so by default, I'm in the additive. Okay. And if I need to remove something, I just it's not letting me remove it. It's too tight. All right, so let me see if I can make a mistake here. All right, so I went outside. If I need to, I just hit the Alt Option key, and there we go. Now it removes it. Okay, it's just a quick way of being able to kind of work through without having to stop and switch gears all too often. Okay. Now, me personally, I'm not a big fan of this particular tool because I am relinquishing a certain amount of the decision making to the computer. All right. I'm letting the computer figure out where my edges are. I don't need to have the computer tell me where the edges are. I can see where the edges are. So for me, the lasso tool and the polygon tool are better choices. All right. I usually work in a little bit closer and I can see where my edges are. Okay. And just by pressing the alter option, I can go ahead and very quickly move through my selections. Okay. See, it did a terrible job here, that magnetic edge. All right, and of course, because my my backgrounds are lined up, again, you don't have to be overly careful with your selection. You know? All right, the other thing is, like, whenever you see any straight lines, I can start at the straight line, come down like in the middle here, come to the end, and then let go, and it's gonna fill the distance in between. So here we go. Fill. Okay. Simple enough. All right, and then you just make your way around, and you're gonna be careful with your selection. Okay. All right. Let me get rid of that. Let me back up a little bit. All right. Another way you can do it is you can go into quick mask mode. All right. So quick mask mode is this little icon that's a rectangle with a little circle in it. Okay. And let's see, where's my tool for that? I think it's just a regular brush, right? No, it's not. Quick mask. Yeah. So actually let me back that up a little bit. All right, because I need to make a adjustment here. All right. I'm wearing an orange shirt here, and the whatchamacallit, the chair is blue. So this color selection for my quick mask is not going to work. So let me find this ghastly green. I think that should do it. Okay. All right. So the way I got there is I just double click on this little icon here. Okay, double click, brings this up. All right. The other thing that you want is when you are painting, you want to be in the masked areas or the selected areas. I think selected areas, that's what we want. Okay. So we hit OK. All right. When we are in the mask mode, you're not going to really see anything on your screen, but black. All right, so white is the default. White allows you to see through. Black is your mask. Oops, gotta make sure I'm in mask mode. All right, you'll know you're in mask mode when the background of your layer changes color. Okay, that's how you'll know. All right, so you're gonna get yourself a brush, black. All right, and you can see, let me zoom in. Okay, now I have the intensity at 50%. You can change that if you want. All right, but basically what you're doing is everywhere you paint, you are literally painting the mask. All right. So this might be an easier way for you to pretty much do the same thing. All right. But unlike the previous method where you kind of are painting out the character, you are in this case just painting over, but you can still see what you are painting on. Okay. So if you are a little unsure about the previous method, this might be a little bit easier. Okay. And what I normally do with this particular tool is I work the opposite way. I will go to the edges. I'll do all my edge work first. All right. Because that's a little bit easier to see. All right. And if you don't like the 50% opacity, you can change it to whatever opacity you want. Just come back, double click. All right, and you say, oh, maybe 80%. Okay. Oh, Control Z, go back to, all right, and now it's a little bit more obscured from underneath. Okay. But it might be easier for you. All right, and just go all the way around the edges. All right, take your time. The quality of your mask is determined by the time you put into it. All right, if you rush it, it's going to be a terrible mask. All right, and again, you can still use the shift, click, shift to draw a straight line whenever you come anywhere where you need a straight line. Okay. And again, I'm just going around all my edges. Okay. Once you have your edge work, then you can finish your mask by selecting a hard edge brush, making it larger, and let that do your bulk work. Okay. All right. I prefer, and you know, whatever's easier for you. If you find that, you know, doing that and then saving the edges for after works better for you, do it. But I find that this particular here is more visually confusing for me working this way. All right. I'd rather have, you know, a nice soft round brush, work my edges, and then knock out the rest, the interior. Okay. But whatever works best for you. Okay. I find that, you know, doing the interior first kind of, I've left things that were questionable. It's like, is that part of it or is that not part of it? You know, so I find that if I do my edges first, it kind of reduces the questions in my mind about what should be masked and what shouldn't. I don't know if that made any sense to you guys. All right. It's just me. It's just the way my mind works. I can visualize the process better with this particular masking style if I just mask the edges first. Straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line, holding the shift key. Okay. All right, let me just back up. Switch. All right, and then once I have it, it's easy. You see how easy I can do this, you know, zoomed out, because I know where all my edges are. And I can do all the bulwark. Okay. All right, and of course, like I said, the trick is find a color that contrasts with everything in your image that you're going to be masking out. All right, you saw how previously the red kind of matched into the shirt that I'm wearing, and you couldn't really tell, is that mask or is that shirt? Okay. Once you have your selection, you can go ahead and click on that quick mask tool, and it automatically builds your selection. And from here, you just create your mask and you're good to go. Okay. So that's 3 different ways that are fairly easy of building masks. Okay. All right, and of course, now that, I can always come back into, oops, no, I can't. Because, all right, I can come back into my mask. There we go. Can I do it? Masked area, selected areas. There we go. Oh no. Masked area. It's not going to let me do it. Okay. Control I. There we go. Now I can continue. I'm gonna make this one really, really sloppy just so we can continue on with the other parts, right? Okay. Ta-da. And we'll shift click pull. Oh yeah, we want our cooler. All right, because we're gonna put a beer can on top of that. All right. Okay, and Control delete. Control Z, delete. Am I on the right one? Oh, Control Shift I, delete. No, that's not what I want. There we go. No, that's not what I want. What do I want? Black. Control Shift down. All right. Delete. Nope. Alt delete. There we go. That's what we want. Control and then invert. There we go. All right, and it looks like my background's a little bit different on that one. We can go into our mask, brush, soft brush, white as a foreground color, and we can clean it up. I'm not gonna go too crazy because you guys kind of get the gist of this. I don't want to spend too much time here. Okay. All right. All right, so that's a composite. Looking pretty good. I want to go ahead and, oh, you know what? My water bottle and,
There's a 24-ounce beer can in front of it.
yeah, that stayed from my original bottom plate. So I have to go all the way to my bottom plate. This is the bottom plate here. And I'm going to have to clone that out. Okay. Not a problem. We just take a Lasso tool. Okay. Image. Let's edit. Content aware fill. Say okay. We're going to select that. Did it do a good job? Good enough. All right, Control D. Not the best job. Let me merge it down. We can take our spot healing brush and we can just clean up that edge. Really terrible, didn't it? All right, let's try the remove tool. Using a little bit of Adobe Sensei. There we go, much better job. Nice, okay. All right, so now we have our, all right, we gotta add these back in. This guy, and this guy, okay? All right, and at this point you can say, okay, you know what? I don't need any of the other images. We can select them and go ahead and delete them off of our stack. All right, it's entirely up to you, or you can wait until after your composite's fully rendered before you do anything else. Okay, now as far as the edges are concerned, all you got to do is go to image crop. Where's my crop? And just come in. Where are we? Come in a little bit. There we go. And hit enter. And that's fixed. Okay. All right. Any questions on just using the mask to composite the elements that are there? Okay. So I show you 3 different ways. There are variations to those 3 ways. I have confidence that you guys can figure it out.
Yes, I can figure it out.
Okay, good. All right, I'm going to go back to Lightroom. All right, we're going to get rid of that view, and I'm going to come down to my assets. Okay, my assets, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the first one, shift click on the last one. I'm now going to edit in Adobe Photoshop. It's going to open up into their own individual files. All right, so in this case I'm editing the original because they're JPEGs. Hit edit. Okay, and there we have our cooler, our cans, our other can, Mr. Fish, another Mr. Fish, another Mr. Fish. I kind of like that one. And our original. Okay. All right. So what I want to do is let's put a cooler in here. All right. So what was, I think it was this one. No, it was the last one. There we go. All right. So in this case, I'm just going to make a quick selection and let the Adobe make my selection. It looks like it did a really, really decent job. And in this particular case, I'm just going to generate a asset out of its background. So I'm going to do Control J, and it's going to create that on its own layer. Okay. So I basically just said, to hell with the background. That's not what I want. Okay. All right. We want to go ahead and make sure that we go to our first. So we got to kind of force our way. Where are we? It's not going to let me do this, is it? Okay. Let's move this into a stack where it's closer. There we go. All right, where to go? Where to go? Image. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna take this and we're gonna drag it onto our image, right? Because it's different format, different file, different color, whatever it is, it's going to give you this little pop-up saying, hey, the dimensions aren't quite the same. You know, do you want to keep going? I'm going to say yes. All right. And you can see that it kind of placed it really, really large. I'm going to move that to the top of my stack. I'm going to go ahead and using the transform corners, I'm going to bring it down in size so that it kind of looks like it should belong there. Okay. Hit enter. All right. It's a little bit dark comparison to everything else, so I want to brighten it up. I'm going to create a curves adjustment. And because I only wanted to affect the cooler, I'm going to make sure that I click the clip to icon. All right. And that's that little icon here. Let me show you right there. Okay. And what that does is it clips it so that it only affects the layer below it. Okay. And we're just going to brighten it up a little bit so that it matches. Not too much. That's good. All right. I'm going to drop one layer below it. I'm going to go ahead and click and create a blank layer because I need to add a little bit of a shadow because right now it doesn't look like it's sitting on much of anything. So I'm going to take black soft round brush and I am going to go ahead and just paint a little bit of a shadow underneath. All right, you don't have to go too crazy with this. All right, let me erase some of this. Okay, we're going to create this as a multiply layer. All right, we're going to give it a little bit of a Gaussian blur. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. All right, and we just want to get it so that it looks a little bit kind of matches the scene. All right, I'm gonna edit, free transform. I'm gonna just kind of like shift and squish it down a little bit. Okay, and hit enter, and I'm just going to reduce the opacity until it looks like it kind of sort of belongs there, and maybe just scoot it down a little bit. There we go. Okay. All right, and if you want, we could even duplicate that and use it for other areas because our one thing I didn't notice is that these guys here, they lost their shadow. So let's go to their mask, brush tool, white as a foreground color, and see if we can paint in their shadows. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now, oops. Let's go to this guy, paint in our shadow. There we go. Okay, so now we can go to our move that in, actually move it over a little bit. Okay, and reduce the opacity even more. So now, there we go. Okay. Now it kind of matches. Okay. All right. fish. Big fish, little fish.
Big fish.
Big fish. All right. So now we go. Oh, I can go ahead and I can close this. I don't need it anymore. All right. Oh, Coke cans. Little fish. This big fish or this big fish? I
That's
kind of
good.
like that one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The other way you can do it is just go ahead and control click, or I'm sorry, control C to copy. Come over to your big image, control V. Did I? Oh, I know what I didn't do. You got to select it. Control A, control copy. Then go to your image, control V, and drop it in. We're going to size it down. I think what I'll do is I'll flip it also. All right, so edit, transform, flip horizontally. There we go. How big should we make that fish? We want to make it sizable, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a sizable fish, right?
Bragging rights.
Bragging rights, yeah. Okay. I think we can always size it down a little bit more if we need to. Okay. All right. So because I basically copied the entire image over, we can use any of the selection techniques that you learned previously. All right. So we can go here. All right. And actually, because this is smaller, all right, we can go ahead and create a mask. Select a hard round brush, make it a little bit on the larger size, black as our foreground color, and we can go ahead and remove the bulk of all of this very, very quickly because we're using, you know, such a large brush. All right. Once you got the bulk of it, you can now zoom in. I'll get a softer brush, make it a lot smaller, and we can clean up those edges and get rid of that background. Okay. So this part here should be fairly easy for you guys. All right. Just go all the way around. Clean it up. And because, you know, it's relatively small in comparison to the rest of the image. And to be honest, this image isn't going to be printed. All right. So I don't have to get overly nuts with my masking. All right, this is just going to be going up on social media. It'll be used to maybe advertise next year's event. All right, so I don't have to be overly crazy with how careful I am with the edge. All right, you can see I'm just kind of just flying right along, getting rid of that. I just want to make sure that I don't have any halos. All right, because we are, you know, the background to the fish is that light blue. All right, and I don't want that light blue creating too crazy of a halo. Okay. All right, so every once in a while you get into a situation like this where you have these sharp cut indents. All right. So one of the ways that I'll do it is, like, for example, this part of the fish flows really, really nicely. All right, so let me just kind of show you what I mean. All right, so what I'll do is I will cut into it like that. So I'm following the edge of the fin. Then I switch so that white is my foreground color, and I'll paint back in just that edge because that edge is easy to follow. Okay. Hopefully you follow what I mean. Here's another one. All right, that edge and this edge. Okay. So what I'll do is I will I'll cut in. All right, and then switch white as my foreground color, and then just paint that back in. All right, and then we just continue all the way around. That way I get a nice, really sharp inner corner there. All right. All right, because I'm working with a soft round brush, it's going to, kind of soften the edges, so I don't get a really hard edge against the grass. All right, so it's going to soften my edge and make it blend into that background a little bit better. All right, and just like that, I have a fish. All right. What's that?
You got a 5-pounder.
That's like a 20-pounder. Holy cow. All right. So now I gotta align the two, all right? Because I need to create a line. I have to paint in my fishing line. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna shift that so it looks like kind of sort of belongs there. Okay. And I'm going to create a new blank layer. I'm going to go ahead and let me zoom in here. I'm going to get my brush tool. I'm going to stay with a soft round brush, okay? But I'm going to make it at about maybe 50% hardness, all right? And let's see what I have. I still have black. All right. I'm on a blank layer. All right. So what I want to do is I want to match the look. All right. So that's not quite. All right. So let me add a little bit more blur. So about 20%. Let me make that smaller. Okay. I think we're going to have to go full. I might even need to add a little bit of blur, actually, now that I'm looking at it. Okay, that's not a problem. All right, so maybe make it a little bit smaller. So that's 5 points. Let's go to, or pixels rather. So let's go to 3 pixels. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample the color of the string. All right, so let me zoom in here. Okay. Currently, I have black as my foreground, white as my background. If I press and hold the Alt key, all right, let me see if zoom. Press and hold the Alt key. It won't let me with the zoom. Damn it. It's going to change to a color picker reticle. Say that 3 times fast. All right, and if I click on it, it's going to select that color. Okay, and what I want to do is I just want to basically replicate it. I'm just going to draw right next to it. That looks good because now when I blur it out a little bit more, it should match. Okay, let me Control Z. Zoom out. I want to be able to see the fish and the end of the pole. So I'm going to click, shift, click, and there's my fishing line. Okay. Now, in comparison to the other ones, you can see, let me zoom in. You can see that it doesn't quite match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur. It remembers my last setting, so obviously that's not going to work. So let me bring it down, and I'm just going to increase it little by little until it looks like the two match. So about 1.3, 1.4. That looks about right. Looks like they match, correct? Hit OK. Control 0. And I now have a fish, a very heavy fish on a pole. Okay. Ta-da! I don't have to worry about a hook or anything like that, or a lure. You can get fancy if you want to, but this pretty much gives you the story, right? Okay, let's put Mr. Wimpy in there. All right, so now, where was it? This one. Okay, we can get rid of this. This one or that one. That one, I think, right? That's going to contrast really nicely against the green, right? Okay, so here's another way. We can just take the lasso tool, all right, create a little lasso around it. Control C to copy, or Command C for you Mac people. Come to my image, Control V. Ooh, place it in there. We're going to go ahead and rotate it. If I press and hold the Shift key, it's going to lock my rotation to specific angles. And we want this to be really, really tiny. Maybe we'll make it a little bit fatter. All right. Okay.
That's it.
Oop.
That's it.
Yeah. In comparison to the other one, that looks
Right.
good, right? And now we got to figure out, kind of, we'll put it even, a little even with the top of the other fish, so that way the comparison really, really is obvious. Okay. Hit Enter, Control Z. All right. This one should be very easy because I did the majority of the removal in the previous and the original file. So here, all I got to do is add a mask. All right. Select the brush. All right. Nice soft round brush. Black is my foreground color, and we just come in and we just eliminate this. Or, all right, let me Control Z. Or we can just come in and let's try this one. We'll do the magnetic wand. All right, and we can let's do it the other way. No, that's not going to work too well, is it? Okay, maybe not. Let's try the quick selection tool. Oh, quick selection is definitely not going to do it either. Nope. Okay. So those options aren't working very well. So we'll just keep to the brush. Nice and simple. Oh, make sure you're on the mask. All right, because the background is dark on this one, you're gonna need to be a little bit more careful. Obviously pay attention to how the image you select to comp in interacts with your background. All right, let me zoom in a little bit more, make my brush a little bit smaller. When you make your, even though I'm not changing the softness of the brush, it's still at 100%. All right, the size will make it a little bit more contrasty. Okay, when you reduce the size of your brush, it really changes the contrast of that edge. All right, so you just keep that in mind. All right, here we go. And I'm gonna switch to my white to clean this part up, because I kind of really went into the fins here. All right. And of course, if you want to really, really get fancy, you can make your brush really, really small and just go into all the crevices if you want. I don't think it's really needed, you know. All right. Control 0. There's my tiny fish. He's looking a little dull, so I'm going to go ahead and create a curves adjustment. Just like before, make sure that you only want it to target the layer below it. So you click on the clip, and we're going to clip it, and we're going to go ahead and brighten that up a little bit. There we go. Okay, come back to my mask. A little bit too much of a hard edge, so let's go a little further into it. There we go. Nice. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the settings. What was it? I had 3 pixels, right, for my string. I'm going to Alt click. Oh, I'm on my mask. Make sure you're on the image. Alt click on the, where are we? I'll click on the image. All right, I'm going to create a new blank layer. And we don't need to clip it, so I'm going to shift draw down. Okay, my fish not quite lined up. Select my fish, move it into place, and go back to my string. We're going to give it a filter. All right, it remembered what we had last time, filter, Gaussian blur. So I'm just going to click on this. It's going to apply the same Gaussian blur that I applied previously, so I don't have to replicate that, okay? So Gaussian blur, hit OK. There's my, and actually that's pretty bad color. So let's see if we can, brighten it up. So image, adjustments, curves. We're going to go ahead and brighten that up a little bit. And the green, we're going to remove some of that green. Okay. All right. Image adjustments. Let's go. Let's just desaturate it and line it up. There we go. That looks even better. Now we got it. Okay. Control 0. I have a very pathetic looking fish. All right. This fish, big fish, I think we need to brighten that up. So curves adjustment, we'll clip it. And there we go. Okay. Voila. We have a nice little story composite. All right. I'm not going to go into putting in the beer cans and the soda cans. I think you guys get the gist of it. All right. This is gone. Yeah. All right. So you can see how fairly easy it is to put these things together, especially if you take your time. You know, again, from the very beginning, when you first, determine your scene, you want to get that, in place fairly well, because everything just kind of trickles down. when you get to the stage where you're actually compositing the two together, it makes that so much easier. Okay. All right. Let me stop share. Go to chat. What do you guys think? It's doable, right?
Absolutely.
Very.
Okay. All right. So I
prepping my images from Southford Falls.
nice, nice. So now your wife can be impressed by your compositing techniques, and she's like, "When are you gonna get to those photos?" All right. So whatever you come up with, go ahead and post them to the Facebook group. I'd like to see what you guys put together. Okay.
Be careful what you wish for.
Well, Alan, I definitely want to see what was in your head with those images, because you had some wild stuff. So
I actually had a photo club ask me to leave because I had too many. I had some photos, nothing harmful, nothing risque, but just like very out of the box. And that's what I do.
they asked you to leave? Seriously?
Yeah,
What kind of snobs were they? Jeez.
Lauderdale, and Lauderdale, and yes, they were snobs.
Oh my God.
Yeah, four of them, are professional photographers. They have studios, things like that. They take it to a different level, and I was kind of coming in with what they consider trash, which is probably true.
Close-minded individuals. That's all I got to say.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah. It didn't hurt my feelings whatsoever because I couldn't care less what they think.
Yeah.
I still like what I like.
You know, I've judged quite a few photo contests, and I've judged quite a few portfolios. And one thing that early on, I used to have to remind myself a lot, but I don't anymore, is that just because I don't like it does not mean it does not hold any merit.
Right.
You know? And, I judge by, is it telling an interesting story?
What's the assignment? Did it hit the assignment? That's all.
Yeah, does it hit the assignment? Does it, obviously there are certain, subjective, or I'm sorry, objective rules that often apply. Are those being met? Are those, no, not, let me take that back because that's the wrong choice. It's not that they're being met, are they utilized appropriately for the image? Because you can apply a rule, it's a valid rule, but it doesn't apply properly to the image that you created. So those things can be very objective and very easy to judge by. But the creativity aspect of it, you know what? If it's not your cup of tea, too bad. Don't judge it by whether you like it or not. Judge it by its merits. I don't know. That's one reason I never joined photo clubs.
I do, and I enjoy them, but it's like anything else. If you go to a few restaurants, you're gonna have a favorite restaurant, and then I found them.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right, gentlemen. Next week, Patreon session. I think I posted it already.
You did.
Did you get a message? Okay.
What are we doing again?
Well, it was going to be on, what was it? It was going to be on the pen, right? but it'll be on Blendif.
Good.
Okay. We'll get into the weeds. So that's going to take your editing to another level because it opens up some editing techniques that just once you see it, it's really, really impressive. So anyway, thank you once again for another hanging out with me on another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. Again, I want to see your work. I want to see what you come up with. Alan K, I know you didn't join us, but maybe you might have something in your collection that you can put together, and let's see what you come up with.
You've seen a lot of composites that I put together, so. I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
that's true. That's true.
I mean, yeah. I did steampunk this weekend, and the human fairy had a couple other fairies in the scene with her.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing different kind of composites
All right.
type of stuff.
Well, next Monday's class, you'll learn some techniques of making those composites kind of come together so they don't look
Okay.
too disparate. All right, with all
Okay.
the
Yep.
elements. All right, gentlemen, have a good one. Stay safe,
too.
and we will see you next time.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.